Welcome to the Agronomy and Farm Management Podcast. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Josh, and we're your farm management hosts. Let's get started.
Josh, it is Ohio County Fair season and has been for some time. And certainly people go to the fair for lots of reasons. See those shows, exhibits, and of course, food. Josh, do you have any favorite foods that you like to pick up at the county fair?
Bruce, we just had our fair back in July. It's a long week, a lot of hours, and I'm always looking forward to the funnel cakes. The funnel cakes is what I'm always willing to spend my money on. I remember back in the day when you could get one for about $4 or $5. I think I paid like $8 this time for a
Oh,
funnel cake.
goodness.
So, yeah, they're getting kind of expensive, but they're always the must-have for me. But when it comes to actual food, fair fries. I got to have some fair fries, get some of that saltiness in my life, but I'm a sweetie eater. I love me a funnel cake. What about you, Bruce? What are you choosing whenever
Well,
you're
I
at the
got I
fair?
got to ask you about your fries. Are they going to have vinegar on them or just salt?
No vinegar. I'm not a vinegar person. It's too sour. Not for me. I just put some salt, smother it with ketchup, and that's the way we roll with our fries.
Well, at the Defiance County Fair and several other fairs, I always love to support the local pork stand. We have a sausage stand at the Defiance County Fair. The Fairview Young Farmers support that. They're a great community organization. Their proceeds go right back into the community, right back into the fair, and great place to get early, midday, and late in the day sausage sandwich. Of course, a milkshake is always great. And of course, our county fair has a great donut stand. And so you got to get there early and get those varieties of cherry and blueberry and all kinds of great donuts there as well. So no loss for options at most of the fairs that I go to. So that's great. Well, our guest today, we have a great guest today, Josh, of course, and we have Kane Lewis with us. And Kane is a fellow extension colleague that we have in Scioto County here, and is going to be talking with me about these farm record keeping systems today. But Kane, how about you? You're a fair goer, and what's your favorite go-to fair food?
Yeah, I don't agree with either of you. A sausage biscuit, is that really fair food just because it's at your fair? I
Oh, it's a
figured,
sausage patty. It's not the biscuit and such, but yeah, it's.
I mean, you can get that anywhere. So I'm Scioto County, A&R, but in Scioto County is the best fair around, period. Definitely crushes Jackson, just getting that out there. But the biggest thing is you guys forgot about the fried cheese. I mean, you got to get a fried cheese every now and then. Yes, they've definitely went up in price, but they are still good. I'm a cheese lover. If I get fries like Josh was talking about, I got to put cheese on them. You guys also forgot about the candy apples. You guys don't have candy apples at your fair?
Yeah, Defiance does. We have a hometown concessionary that still has candy apples for sure.
But yeah, those are my favorite.
Well, Kane, thanks for being with us today. We're going to tackle some farm accounting software, just some general questions that you and I, Kane, we both get in the field of farm accounting. And so we're going to change the role a little bit here today. Josh is going to be our moderator. So Kane and I are going to bounce this back and forth today a little bit. One little disclaimer I want to make as I speak about software and my role in extension, and probably Kane too, is that our discussion today is strictly for educational purposes and how we believe the software that we're going to talk about today is applicable to farm record keeping systems. We are not implying any kind of endorsement or judgment on any of these commercial softwares that are available that we may mention or by name or given examples today. So we're just going to have fun and kind of answer some questions that farmers ask us.
So to start this podcast, and we'll be kind of having a boxing match between Bruce and Kane. So let's start off with Bruce. Bruce, what's the fundamental difference between QuickBooks and Quicken?
Well, I believe that the reason Quicken works so well, it is a cash accounting system. And cash accounting systems are very simple. We record the income and expenses at the time that they are received or paid out, which is kind of definitionally what a cash accounting system is designed to do. In so many cases, probably 95+% or higher percentage tax returns are filed to the IRS from farms across the US on a cash accounting basis. So it's not uncommon that we have accounting software that matches the way that we can file our tax return at the end of the year. So that's one of the fundamental features of Quicken. And that's a little bit different when it comes to QuickBooks, right, Kane?
Yeah, one of the big things, it's a double entry, the accrual. And when you're doing that, you have your debits, credits, and you're recording things way before you could get payment. So if you put in 50 acres of crops and you want to make a deal with Cargill, and you can go ahead and put that deal in that you're going to sell them 10,000 bushels or whatever. And I think that's a very smart way to be than just the cash that you get in and out, because you're already saying like, hey, I am going to get this. But QuickBooks is suitable for more complex financial management because, with cash, that's just what it is, especially on how diverse farms are, especially in my region down on the river and stuff like that, where people have livestock, people have crops, people have, fruit trees, all this different things that they need to keep separate. If they're just going off the cash basis, I don't know if I'd really want to look into that when it comes to the taxes and everything like that. I want to make sure it's more complex. I want to make sure that I have the most I can into my financial records.
So, Kane, you kind of touched on it a little bit. How does a farm organize the income and expenses in QuickBooks?
The chart of accounts, it tracks your income, it tracks your expenses. It can be tailored to be specific towards ag related. Now, we use QuickBooks on my farm, and the biggest thing is we're a crop farm. And so when we can put in that this field last year was corn, or this field was beans or whatever, we can put into the chart of accounts on what we spend on just this field and what we look to get out of it, but also what we look to spend. And I don't know Quicken that well. So Bruce, why don't you tell us what you think about that?
Quicken uses a list of categories, and those categories organize income and expenses as well. And so those can line up very nicely with really the tax lines that the IRS needs at the end of the year. And some of them for the tax Schedule F or Schedule C, they're kind of combined. One example I often use is fertilizer and lime on the tax return. Well, we know as farm managers and producers that there's a difference between fertilizer and lime. So the farm manager throughout the year may need a chart of accounts or a category list that really further details that out. And so that we do have subcategories of different types of fertilizers that we use for crop production or otherwise. In Northwest Ohio, we have multiple sources of lime options that we can split out and manage those expenses based on the source of different lime. But at the end of the year, we want to be able to throw that all together for our tax return and call it that fertilizer and lime line for the tax return. But as farm managers, the level of detail that we may want to have is going to really depend on the farm. And it's okay that, my farm, my chart of accounts or my category list might look a lot different or have a lot of similarities to Kane Lewis's farm in that situation. And so our software, regardless of what we pick and choose and use, I think having a great chart of accounts or a list of categories and subcategories that pretty much fit the farm. I like the feature in Quicken that we call tags, which allow us to tag an expense or an income to that enterprise level. So let's say I'm producing soybeans and I have a fertilizer that I want to tag so that I can run an enterprise report for soybeans specifically. Whether it's income or expense, I can put a tag on it, a yellow sticky note, kind of I would describe it, and say, these are ones that are associated with soybeans. And I can even go a step further and say, oh, those soybeans were grown down at the Smith farm. And so I can double tag it and say, okay, show me a report that says, here are my soybean income and expenses, but also show me what here is at the specific farm. And I think QuickBooks can do that as well. They don't call them tags. What do they call them, Kane?
Basically, you just report it. So any expense that you put in, whether that be dinner with a business client that you had to pay for, you're going to have to add it to a subcategory. You do have to add that to it. I don't think that QuickBooks has that extra tag like we had it in this field. So that's actually really cool that Quicken does have it. I did want to ask a question. How hard is it to make those categories? Sometimes I think QuickBooks likes to overcomplicate some of those things, but QuickBooks does a really, really good job on making your categories and where it's supposed to go towards the farm, whatever expense. I just didn't know how hard it'd be on Quicken.
Yeah, I think in QuickBooks, when you set up your company in QuickBooks, you can select an agricultural company, I believe, and then it pulls in kind of that Schedule F chart of accounts. Yeah, Quicken doesn't have that feature. We have to import some category lists, and universities have built those category lists that then we can import into Quicken so that I do see that seed chemical fertilizer, grain sales, raised livestock, those kind of things can be populated and imported into my category list in Quicken. And then from there, that basic structure of a category or chart of accounts, then I can add additional subcategories that make sense for my farm. Like I want to have a MAP and DAP and anhydrous, all these subcategories or types of fertilizers. I can build that within Quicken pretty easily to manage that list. And like most softwares, if we manage the list, and if the list reflects what the farm is kind of operating as or like, I think then the two match up. The farm and the accounting software match each other, and it makes it easier for the bookkeeper. And so really cool. And I think both have some ways of managing those chart of accounts.
Yeah, I like how you can import to Quicken. Like you said, having that chart that is going to reflect what the farm's going to be. It kind of reminds the accountant or manager or whatever, whoever's taking care of the books, that, oh yeah, I forgot about this. I needed to add blew a tire and we had to get it fixed. I need to add that to having the repairs and maintenance and all that different charts and everything is definitely a big help.
While we're still on the topic of Quicken, Bruce, what other account activities like capital purchases, sales, inventories, payroll can Quicken record?
Quicken does have some shortfalls, I like to call them, the things that it's really not built to do. Quicken was built as a cash accounting, personal financial software that has a lot of flexibility that we've kind of described, but a couple things that it doesn't really handle super well. And one of those is payroll. And I think Kane's going to have the trump card on maybe
I've been waiting for this. That's what I've been looking for. So.
The inherent feature of payroll is no longer and hasn't been built into Quicken for several decades now. Inventories can be done. It's a little clunkier in Quicken, so a lot of folks will keep their inventory lists outside of Quicken, and so they'll keep different method of their inventories, bushels on hand and other inventories things. Now, capital purchases and sales, certainly we have a chart of accounts or a category that tracks the capital purchases and capital sales, and it's still designated in Quicken as a tax-related item. It's just not a Schedule F line, but you run a tax summary report at the end of the year, and it's going to pull up those capital purchases and sales because that's going to impact your depreciation schedule. Again, what Quicken doesn't maintain is a depreciation schedule. We're going to do that outside of the software. So, all right, Kane, I exposed myself to vulnerabilities.
Yeah,
Just
I was
gonna play that
hoping
trope.
Josh asked me that first because I was going to be like, oh, guess what Quicken doesn't have? The payroll is huge, especially when you're dealing with one or more faculty or workers or hands, whatever you want to call them. So during our busy times, we'll have 4 or 5 workers, truck drivers, operators, mechanics, whatever's we're going to have. And keeping the payroll straight is a big thing. Now, you guys like taxes? Just put this out there. Do you guys like taxes? You know what's great about QuickBooks? You know what is the best thing? It will calculate it for you. If you want to take out the insurance and their taxes, it will do that for you. And you know what the best thing about that is, Bruce? It updates for you. It was during the off season. It's like February, March. We had a couple truck drivers working for us, and I wasn't on QuickBooks at all. And some of the taxes updated, and every 30 days or 15 to 30 days, I'll have to check on that. It updates for it. And our computer was unplugged for some reason because we moved it and it didn't update. But as soon as I logged in and got a hold of it, it was like, hey, flagging me like, hey, you need to update. It wouldn't let me pay them because it was going to be wrong on their taxes. So that way it's safe for us, it's safe for them. Depreciation, that's a big thing when it comes to farmers. Why do some people buy equipment? It's a write-off. You know what I mean? And they need to know how much they can write off and how much depreciation they have on certain equipment. And having that all together is one big thing. Now, Bruce, he said you can go out and do this separate, but why would you want to do anything separate? If you can have everything right there, why not have everything right there? Now, I'm a little biased. I like QuickBooks a little bit better, but that really does suit the farmer better because we don't have time to mess around. If you're the farm manager or accountant, you're probably still helping on the farm, just like I am. The time that I spend on the computer needs to be less and less because I want to be out in the field and I want to be working. But if I have it all right there, it's going to save you time. It's going to save you effort. Your inventories, being able to track the costs and inventory value. It's really easy to put in there, like if you're going to be selling beans for, I always put in there like however many our silos can hold. It'd be like 50,000 bushels, right? Then I can put in there like, oh, we're going to sell these at $10 or $15. And being able to track that is also a pretty big need for the farmers. And having that Schedule F for your taxes is also pretty nice when it comes to saving time. But yeah, QuickBooks crushes Quicken in this category. Like this was, I knew it was going to be like from the top rope, take Bruce down. So,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
I'll beg to differ that there are some farms that don't have those regular employees like that, and so there's some simplicity that Quicken can allow, and to go with a QuickBooks that has many features that maybe some farms don't need might be a decision that farm managers really need to take a look at. If I'm just using a high-end software for simplified features, I may not need to be paying for all those features, and so that's where Quicken may come back and win the day at some farm levels. And
I'll give you this. I'll give you this. It's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, Bruce. I'll just,
sounds
yeah.
expensive when it comes to software.
Okay. Okay.
Kane, you kind of already touched on it. Some farmers, they either love bookkeeping or they hate it. I don't know if there's too much in between. They want to be out in the field. How much time do you have to devote to using this software? Do you have to do it every day, weekly, monthly?
The rule of thumb on our farm is once a week or once every 2 weeks, depending on the season and how you're doing your payroll. And farming's different. If you're a livestock farmer, you guys have something going on, or a dairy farmer, you have something going on all the time that you'll probably have to update definitely a lot. But if you're, a crop farmer, whatever, et cetera, it's going to be different. QuickBooks is definitely more in detail. It takes a little bit more work, just like Bruce said. That's the one thing that kind of lacks is you're going to have to spend a little bit more time on this than I think that you would with Quicken. So Bruce, you can crush me on this one, but I still got a win in there. So
No, I think you're spot on, and I think even with Quicken, where farms today may not keep exactly a paper checkbook register like they used to. They may use their software for that check register, meaning, well, how much money's in the account today? They either go online to the bank to see and see that everything is cleared and updated. So Quicken can be that real-time check register. And so the more often a farm or a user of Quicken is updating Quicken, that's where their most real-time information is going to be at. And so Kane, do you even know what a check register is when you flip open the checkbook and there's those lines above that you would hand write details about what I wrote check number 2042 for?
I actually do. I've seen it in electric form. I've never seen it handwritten out. So in QuickBooks, you have that. You have your register. And the best thing about that is when you write them big checks, paying back farm credit, paying back your loan for the year, your operating loan, or when you get your crop in or you sell your cattle and you spend a lot of money and you look at your West Banco as our bank. We check our bank and it says we have all this money, but you forgot that you just put this huge check in there. And so then you can go to QuickBooks and it shows you right there. If
Yep.
you wrote that check with QuickBooks, of course, then you can see your register and say, hey, you're negative money, or whatever. And so that is a thing. I've heard about it, Bruce. I'm young. It's all right.
Don't let him bully you, Kane. I'm sure Bruce remembers when it first came out and you had to chisel it in stone.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Well, and Quicken can write checks as well and keep that real-time check register. So I think both are great at that and keep that cash accounting or accrual accounting system in check. And you can see some unreconciled with the bank transactions that are out there in the real world and they're floating around and have not yet hit that bank account yet. So I think both can really play a role. So the level of timing and the detail is going to relate back to the farm manager and how timely they need to be. Very much so daily, definitely weekly,
Yeah.
and at a bare bones minimum, monthly reconciling that bank statement to make sure that I didn't make an error and the bank didn't make an error either. I'm not missing a check somewhere floating out there or an electronic fund transfer that I forgot
Yeah.
to put in somewhere.
Yeah, that's a big thing when you look at your bank account at the end of the month and there's either a lot more or a lot less than you thought. And so, yeah, reconciling monthly, it like you said, it just depends. So Quicken and QuickBooks both can do that pretty well. It just goes back to the bookkeeper.
So Bruce, let's stay with Quicken for a quick second. What are some common reports that software can generate from the farm bookkeeper and the farm manager?
Yeah, so the ones that I've found managers using within Quicken is a cash flow by tag. And remember, the tag for me, and I think, Kane, the term in QuickBooks is class. And so
Yep.
class and tags are somewhat equivalent to tracking income and expenses at the enterprise level. So my tag, soybeans, I can run a cash flow by tag report, and it essentially shows me that given any kind of date range, whether it's across calendar years, because farming activities spill over to the previous year, they spill over into the next year with grain sales. So I can run a cash flow by tag report and look at an enterprise and look at all the income and expense in real time so far and see that net inflow or outflow. Another one is spending and income by category. Say I'm tracking down an expense on the farm, I can just run a report that looks at categories, or the chart of accounts would be another term. And then another one is expense by payee. Did I pay Kane Lewis? I can run a why would I pay Kane Lewis? No, I would, because he's a skilled guy. And so he's expense by payee. How much did I pay him in a certain period of time? Certainly, those are important reports for Quicken.
Paying the customer or paying the employee is big. Same with QuickBooks. You can, how much did I spend this month on this employee? Is he actually getting that productivity out as well? That's a good thing to think about. A big thing with QuickBooks is the profit and loss statements. Is this, especially when you divvy up per field or divvy it up per whatever category that you want to, is this making me money or is this losing me money? That's a big thing. But all the expenses and financial reports that Quicken has, so does QuickBooks. I think the biggest thing at the end of the day is, what do you want out of your farm? Like, what are you going to put in and what are you going to get out? And when you're looking at the profits and loss and your cash flow statements, you can really see where stuff is going on either one. And as a farmer, especially older farmers, they have the cash in their wallet and they just hand it out, and this is what it is. And trying to keep a hold of that, like, where did that money go? And wanting to know is, how are we going to, if you need to save money, how are we going to be able to save money, or how are we going to make more money? And keeping it detailed in QuickBooks or Quicken is a big thing. I think another cool thing about QuickBooks is, if you are going for a big loan, how many reports are they going to want, Bruce? Anything and everything that you can give them, right?
Yeah, yep.
2 clicks of a button, you can go to reports and you can be like, print every report that we ever have. Very simple in QuickBooks, and being able to just have that there, that you don't have to worry about that it's wrong. You can go back in the years. Going for a loan, they want basically 3 years. What's your past 3 years look like? And you can go back for the past 3 years and be like, I'm just going to print off all these reports and let them go through it, because I know they're right and I've done them. You know what I mean? That's a cool thing, is just like that. You don't have to go back and try to put things together or remember what's going on. So
we talked a lot about what the software can do for us. Kane, what is the cost of the software? It's got to be a lot, doesn't it?
Oh, it's way too much. QuickBooks is more expensive, and it depends on what you're wanting, because there are different levels of QuickBooks. And actually, QuickBooks has signed into where it's an online version. So usually it was just like offline or just downloaded to a certain computer, and that's where it was at. There's an online version where you can even hook it up to your bank. That's a little bit more expensive. It goes back to, what do you want out of your farm? They have the simple start, and it's only $17, and it's very cheap. Then it goes all the way up to 100 and some, and that all depends on what you want. Quicken is a lot cheaper, right, Bruce?
It is. And a lot of the websites will post kind of that monthly cost. And so it ranges on a yearly basis about $80 to $120 a year is the cost
wow.
of the various versions of Quicken. There is a online version with Quicken. It's Simplify, they call it. But if a user is looking more of a classic, install it on your local computer, traditional software on your computer, those are what they call the Quicken Classics. And then there is the deluxe, which we use often in our training workshops. But then there's also a version called Business and Personal, which has a few features like accounts payable receivable that Quicken is now dabbling in the business and personal version of
Glad they're
Quicken
finally
Classic.
catching up. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can put those pre-positions prior to receiving the income or expense. You can put that accounts payable or receivable. This person is owing me money, I just haven't received it yet, or I owe this person money, I just haven't paid for it yet. That's the basis of the accounts payable receivable portion of the business and personal side of Quicken. So they're dabbling a little bit in that, but no payroll add-on for Quicken if that's something that the farm needs. And so one thing I notice is that sometimes there's a discount if you're a new user to Quicken,
Yep.
but as I've had multiple years of using Quicken, I've never been able to take advantage of a discount during renewal of my subscription. So they kind of pay the full price on a renewal versus a first-time user.
I just looked up how much it costs. And so you have your simple start, which is $30 per month, essentials, which is $60 per month, plus $90 per month. And get ready for this, your advanced, $200 per month. As farmers, we do get a discount, or at least we have in the past, every time that we renew or something. And usually they ask, what's this business for? Is this for personal? And we say farm, and they ask what kind of farm, and we kind of go through it. And that's pretty cool when you talk to the rep and they kind of help work out with, oh, you'll need this plan or you'll only need this plan. You ask what you want to get out of it. So that's a cool little thing about QuickBooks, but it's a lot more expensive.
So we just kind of talked about the prices that we're looking at. It looks like it's going to be hundreds to potentially $1,000 investment a year for either QuickBooks or Quicken. What would you say to someone that's like, well, I can buy a lot of paper for the amount of money. Can I just do it on paper or pencil, or can I use a spreadsheet? What would you say to that person?
I've seen some really good farm record keeping, accurate record keeping systems that in fact were paper and pencil ledgers, spreadsheets, and it very much can boil down to the person that is behind the pencil or is keying in that spreadsheet information. I wouldn't necessarily put an asterisk beside somebody's record keeping system just because they are using spreadsheets and paper and pencil ledgers. At the county extension offices, we all still sell a fair number, a lot of those paper pencil ledger books that farm operations still use. They just require a little bit more calculations that occur within the page. And then from page to page to get to the quarterly or half year summary or the end of year summary, that's where maybe some of the time and speed of analysis comes into play with allowing some of the software to do that. Spreadsheets, there is a really nice spreadsheet out of the University of Missouri. And so the University of Missouri Extension has a great farm record keeping system spreadsheet that has really mirror imaged the paper pencil ledgers that you might think of as multiple sheets, rows and columns that a farmer may want to build to begin with. And it's definitely worth taking a look at if you need one or you're looking at kind of revamping what a spreadsheet can do in lieu of some software. But both have some advantages and disadvantages.
I'm sorry, what's paper and pencil? No, I look at it this way. Bruce hit the nail on the head when he said it's the person who's running it. If you have someone who's organized, neat, and can do everything and not forget about it, let them do it. But farming's always changing. Like I said, even with the taxes, it's always there's an update, or especially whatever state you're in. We're in Ohio and it could be different in Kentucky. Like we farm 100 acres over in Kentucky because we're right on the river, and those taxes are different than our taxes and stuff like that. And farming is always changing, being updated. And so why should our record keeping not be updated as well? When you can take the load off of not having to go through, sit down and write all this stuff out and do these calculations when they are done for you, I just don't see why not. We went over the cost, and it is a little bit of money, but at the end of the day, I would rather be double checked by the computer and triple checked by the computer than I mess something up in February and I don't catch it until December and have to go back and update all that paperwork. And it still goes back to the person. It's just easier. It's just like when power steering came out. You can still drive without power steering, but do you really want to? That's how I think of that.
Is that a shot at my age, Kane? Power steering? I don't think you've ever driven something without power steering, have
I
you?
know. I owned an old Jeep back in the day. I fixed up an old Jeep,
You
and
probably have a four-wheeler with power steering.
I do.
Yeah,
I
see?
actually do. I own a 1935 Chevy like paddy wagon basically, and it did not have power steering, but guess what? It had when I got rid of it. Had power steering because I wanted to drive it. So yeah, it's just like why fight it? And I get somebody who's done it for 35 years this way and it's worked for them for 35 years, why change it? I understand that. But what's going to happen when you hand that off to your child or grandchild or whoever and they have no idea what that stuff is? They don't know how to make these calculations. And then they're trying to update all this stuff. It's just like bite the bullet and help them out. You know what I mean? That's one way about it. My dad could get on QuickBooks and he could tell you what the remaining balance is. That's about it because he just never grew up on the computer and never grew up doing that. But where I grew up doing it is so much easier. And when it comes time for my child or whoever, I can easily transfer this over and be able to show them rather than, hey, teaching them this whole accounting class on how to have all this files and all this stuff. It's just, in my opinion.
So we've kind of covered a lot of what Quicken and QuickBooks can do. What else can a farm manager do with these accounting software for their record keeping?
Throughout the year or at the end of the year, I think each software probably should be able to calculate a cost of production. I think the systems that a farm manager decides on should set them up for some enterprise analysis and helping them with really producing those end of season, end of year farm financial documents. And so we're analyzing the enterprises, but then at the end, we're going to pull it all together and do some farm financial documents, like Kane mentioned, need to share with a lender. I think it's also part of the marketing plan and the risk management strategies. We're coming off of some years of high income for crop revenues, and we're going to be looking at some narrowing and certainly shrunk margins of profitability. So using our day-to-day income and expense software to manage our marketing plan and risk management positions, I think are going to be really important. And the last one on my list is then that farm business analysis, which goes in and really can set up a farm to take any kind of a income and expense data, as well as their inventories and depreciation. And let's do an analysis and say, okay, how does my farm compare against a benchmark or the standards in our industry? What are my ratios of solvency? And that may not sound very exciting, but in the long run, these are the years that we need to, if nothing else, better understand the productivity and profitability of our farms in the next 5 years, in my opinion, more necessary than ever. So I think there's a bigger picture. Picking the software, yeah, pick one that fits, but there's some bigger pictures that either of our softwares can help us accomplish, I believe.
At the end of the day, there's going to be flaws in everything, but I mean, it's a business. You know, you do it for fun. You do it because you love the land and you love just doing it. But you have to be able to make money, and you have to be able to show people I make money off my farm, or if I don't make money, where am I losing it? And you need to be able to, like you said, you know, your farm business analysis. You need to be able to see where you line up. You also need to see like, do I have like in the next 5 years, will I have enough money to pay off this tractor or to buy this auto steer or build this barn? You have to be able to show people that you can or that you can't. And like you said, you got to pick the one that fits and roll with it because at the end of the day, it's what you put into is what you're going to get out of it. You got to reap what you sow. You could buy QuickBooks and it's the most expensive and it's awesome, but if you're not putting anything in it, you're not going to get anything out of it. It's still hard work and you have to work outside of that as well because you have to be a good manager as you are a farmer. And that's just how it is. You have to be a businessman. Even if you do it in your overalls, you don't have to be suit and tie, but you can do it in your overalls, but you have to do it. That's the biggest thing.
Well, I think we'll end the boxing match right here. I think we can fairly say it's a draw and no one's too black and blue. Is there anything else you guys want to share before we wrap up today?
Yeah, some of our listeners may remember when QuickBooks and Quicken were brother-sister software. They were owned by the same company. And they also may remember that, man, I used to buy that software one time and use it for 15 years and never have to pay the subscription. And so that model has changed. And I think we're at the point where I feel like the monthly subscription or the annual subscription is reinvesting into that company that is making that software more stable, more functional, interacting with online partners that I might need on my farm. How's that relationship maintained with my bank, my institute, my financial institution, so that I can interact with those transactions fluidly without construction underway there. So I think that's a barrier that folks are having maybe with purchasing on the annual basis. But there was that brother-sister breakup back in 2015, I believe, and they went their separate ways, and both companies went to that subscription model. And I think in the long run, we have good software here to continue to use, not as a result, but here we are, and we have two good options.
Bruce, how old were you in 2015?
Oh, for goodness sakes.
Just wondering. Just want to
I'm
put
not-
that out there. No, but I mean, I can get they love when they pay one time and they get to use it for 15 years. Use pencil and paper then, because it's not changing. You can do whatever you want. But when you're paying the subscription, monthly, yearly, whatever, you're getting updates. You're getting these new things that they're going to keep adding because there's people like me who was on the phone with one of the QuickBooks guys explaining what crop farming is and what they should add and what they should take away. And they might add something that can help you and benefit you at the end of the day. And same way with Quicken. So I always think that not newer is always better, but when it comes to this, the more updates that you can have and the more new ideas, because that's the best thing. Like if you look back at 2015, I was a sophomore in high school, just putting that out there. I had no idea what any of this stuff was. Now I can go through it and flip through it, and I love asking questions about it. Then you have somebody new-minded like me who's like, hey, why don't we add something like this? And that might be in the next update, and it could help you out. So I just think that I didn't know that they were brother and sister, actually. So that was kind of a new thing to me. I know QuickBooks was definitely the brother, the older brother, smarter brother, but yeah, that's pretty cool, actually. So
Yeah, I might have misspoken on the year. It might have been 2018, so I'll have to edit my year reference there. So you were what, a senior in high school?
I was a senior
There
in
we
high
go.
school.
Yes,
So
sir.
I was only 18. Actually, it just depends on what time of the year. I could have been 17. So not even a legal adult yet there, Bruce.
Thanks for listening today.
For more information about farm management tips, be sure to check out the Farm Office at farmoffice.osu.edu.
Hey, podcasters, do you like what you're hearing? Be sure to like and subscribe to get notifications when our episodes go live. Share us with your friends, your neighbors, maybe even that third cousin on Facebook that you haven't talked to for years. Let Bruce and I know what you think, maybe even future topics by writing us a review. With that, we'll see you next time.